President-elect Trump is calling for a reversal of President Obama's executive orders on Cuba. He made those calls on a campaign trail. In fact, remember this?
But all of the concessions that Barack Obama has granted the Castro regime were done through executive order, which means the next president can reverse them. And that I will do unless the Castro regime meets our demands.
To immigration expert Elvira Salazar on if the president-elect should take a softer tone on Cuba. We know Donald Trump, he always begins his negotiations with a real strong point. That's been proven and talked about from his book to other things. But we should get more concessions, shouldn't we, from this Cuba deal?
Oh, absolutely. I think President Trump has a historical moment, and it's a historical moment for Cuba, for Americans, and for Cuban Americans, I should say. I think that we should send a signal to the Cuban people and to the Cuban government that we are not the enemy, that we want to help flourish that private sector that has been emerging ever since President Obama gave all these economic concessions. But the problem is that the Cuban government is not in the business of feeding the population. The Cuban government is in the business of power. So they're going to have giving more concessions, it's going to put them in a very dangerous position.
Yeah, but having said that, Elvira, we've seen over the last decade or so where much more powerful communist nations from China to Russia have had to make certain adjustments because no matter how strong you are or how much you suppress people, at some point they rise up, don't they?
Absolutely, but the Cuban brothers have had a very good luck. First of all, they had the Soviet Union that was subsidizing their needs, and after that, Venezuela. We have to remember that Venezuela was giving the Cuban government more than 100,000 barrels of oil for free every day. But that's dwindling down, and that's why the Cuban government needs the American business. But at the same time, they do not want to give any political market share. I repeat, they are in the business of power, and giving up some of that power could threaten their existence. So we are at a moment where we do not know. Fidel is dead, Raul is alone, and Trump is in power. So what's going to happen?
Raul is in his 80s, right? He's 84, 85?
85.
85 years old.
85.
What happens? He's, obviously, we don't think he'll be around much longer. I mean, what power are they protecting? Is there an apparatus? Is there just a certain segment of elites there that continue to benefit from the horrible conditions in Cuba that he's willing to risk? Because Donald Trump isn't going to play with this guy.
And that's exactly the promise that he made to the Cuban Americans. But it's not only that. Yes, to answer your question, Raul has his son-in-law in charge of the economy, and the economy is in the hands of the military. Raul has his son, his biological son, in charge of the intelligence and the repressive apparatus. So they have the whole island in one fist. And what Trump needs to say to them is, we want to help you. Just do not beat the opposition leaders anymore out in the streets. Allow some of the flourishing private business to emerge and don't take things away from them. Allow people to speak and to travel and to assemble and the churches to open up and do not repress the Cubans so much, right. And we could play ball with you. But that's not even happening, and that is why people that were in favor of what Obama was doing, and I was one of them. I think give them a chance. The embargo didn't work. After 50 years, fine. Let's just play ball with them. But the ball has never come back to our court, so people are tired after 2 years. Let's
also maybe add Joanne Chesimire, who killed a police officer in America, been living in
Jersey.
Cuba. You're right. So
absolutely, she's been there for 25 years.
Also, I got to let you go, but I will say, according to Pew, Cuban immigration has almost doubled from fiscal 14 to fiscal 16. Obviously, to your point, they're taking massive advantage of this deal, and we're getting nothing from it.
And the Cuban people are not seeing any rewards. The rewards that President Obama wanted the Cuban people to have, so that they're coming to this shore.
Well, let's hope that changes. I'm pretty sure it will.
Absolutely.
I hope it's a better deal for both countries and both sets of people. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.